You're listening to the Wool Academy podcast. This is episode number 78.
Hello and welcome. My name is Elisabeth van Delden, and once a week we talk to an industry expert from the wool industry supply chain from farm to fashion and beyond, delivering strategies and insights to be successful in wool and showcasing those beautiful stories wool has to tell.
Today's guest is Jimmy Jackson. Jimmy is the founder and head of the International Wool Consulting Group. Jimmy has a lifelong career in the wool industry, and his expertise is in the area of chemical processing. What that means is, in practical terms, that he knows how wool can be mercerized or how wool can be made machine washable. Today, Jimmy will share his experience from working with many wool manufacturing companies around the world, in particular in Asia. Welcome, Jimmy. It's wonderful to be talking to you today. How are you?
Thank you, Elisabeth, for the kind introduction. I'm fine, a little bit warm as we experience the warmest spring or autumn in Australia.
Okay, and we're desperately waiting here in Europe for some warmer weather, so maybe you can send some over soon.
Yeah, a bit too warm. Anyhow.
Well, I would like to start our discussion by you telling us more about yourself and the work that you do.
Okay, well, first of all, as you and everybody can tell from my accent, I'm not from Australia. I originate from near to Bradford, where I was born, in Yorkshire. In the days when I was born and growing up, Bradford was known as a wool city and became the world's number one processing area in them days. I understand it used to process 50% and trade 50% of all the world's wool. And yeah, not just Australian wool, but every type of wool, from Falkland Islands, Norway, wherever. So
it was
that's where I was born and where I'm from.
Yeah, so there was no other way for you to end up working in wool.
No, it became inevitable because when I walked to school, I saw wool on the streets, which had dropped off wagons, etc. I mean, all my relatives at the time said, don't go into the wool industry, don't go to the mill, blah, 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 and I ended up there. In fact, I originally wanted to be a chemist, and I actually got a job. It was a Swiss company located nearby making pharmaceuticals, but still ended up in the wool industry, and I don't regret for one moment.
Well, then, yeah, I think since then you have over 45 years of experience of working in the wool industry. Tell us a little bit more about your career path.
Okay, well, actually, I think it's 48 years now, but anyhow, I've had an incredible career. I joined AWS, which was a Walmart company, back in August 1970. And I was extremely lucky when I joined there. I think it's, the old cliche of right place, right time. The first thing I entered in the AWS, a Walmart company, was the department involved in making wool machine washable. The technology had been developed at laboratory stage in Australia by the CSIRO, and just as I joined, it had been transferred to the Walmart Development Centre in Ilkley to transfer it into a commercial process. So we had a big machine, we had a lot of fun for 2 years, we got gassed a few times to try and make wool machine washable. We eventually got there. And then, so I was really lucky, right time, right place. But in addition to that, I had, first of all, I had some fantastic mentors, both internally and also externally, because most of my time I didn't actually spend in the office, I actually spent in the manufacturing sector. First of all in Bradford, but it wasn't long before they sent me at the ripe old age of 17 to work in Roubaix in France, to one of the largest companies in the world. At that time was Prouveau Majorel, and learnt a lot there. So I also had a great opportunity to actually run a lot of machines. Not only we operated the machines, we had a fantastic pilot plant, just about every type of wool processing machine in the development centre in Ilkley. Also working in the industry, and I can tell you I broke a few machines doing trials, and I once remember getting sort of quickly removed from Pringle when I destroyed their new finishing machine. But that's how you learn. I also had the opportunity to start traveling the world to transfer the technology. It was my job to transfer machine washable technology to design plants, set it up around the world. So I went all over, first of all, places like Italy, Japan, etc., Australia. Australia came first time maybe 35 years, maybe 40 years ago. And, I've had a fantastic career. Eventually, step by step, I got promoted and eventually became a general manager, and that's when I moved to Australia in 2005. I came for 4 years, but been here for 13. And the other thing, also was lucky at that time in the early 70s, the Ivy West, like many other companies, it was normal to sponsor, if you like, young apprentices for their college education. So I spent 4 years in Bradford College, part-time, studying textile chemistry. Then I moved to Huddersfield, Polytechnic, but I like to call it a university as it's known today. And there I did a degree in textile technology and surprised myself by getting a 2-1 honours degree. And eventually, with the help of some key retailers like Marks and Spencer's in the UK supporting me, I was awarded a Fellow of the International Textile Institute, FDI. And over the years, I've probably worked in around 80 countries.
Wow. Okay, that's a big number. And yeah, recently you've founded your own company called the International Wool Consulting Group. And tell us a little bit more what you do there.
Okay. When I left the Walmart company, which is nearly 2 years ago, in end of June, I thought, well, first of all, I've been worked 45, 47 years in the wool industry, and working, you cannot just stop, And anybody who's ever played golf with me knows I'm not a golfer, and I don't mind going to the beach, in Sydney, for half an hour once a week with the family, but you just can't stop it. You love the wool industry so much. You love the fibre. You love everything about it. I mean, I've met thousands of people, established thousands of friends. How can you just stop it, So I decided to start a part-time business called the International Wool Consulting Group. But, I didn't want to work and chase everything. So I decided to work with some key manufacturing companies, which I work with 4 today, who are manufacturing wool products. All these companies, their DNA is wool, and they're manufacturing different types of products. So there's no conflict. In fact, they often work together now on product development or supply chain, etc. In addition, I was approached by the largest and most important knitting yarn trade show in the world, also to work for them, which they call me an ambassador at the start, but I do special projects for them. So really exciting and diverse. And as I say, I'm not just chasing any job, even though many, many people contact me today, etc. But, as I say, I try to have this work-life balance. I spend about 12, 14 weeks a year traveling with my family overseas on holiday. I'm still working in the mornings, but as I say, I'm trying to get this balance, which is not the easiest thing in the world. That's
true. Yeah, that's a challenge for everyone. And what kind of topics do you help your clients with then?
I just got that. Today, a previous meeting, the same thing with a very large German retailer, and it's basically what I don't help them with. I help them with many, many things because my experience stems from the time I've been in Australia. I understand. I'm not an expert on wool, but I understand a lot, and I know a lot of the wool growers. I know the exporters and brokers. Right the way through the manufacturing pipeline, top makers, spinners, weavers, knitters, etc. And I also have a lot of experience and know a lot of retailers and brands. So I help in many ways. So sometimes I help the people I work with find specialised type of wool. I don't get involved in the weekly auctions, or they can sort that out themselves, but they may, for a client, ask me to go and source a particular type. I do, of course, a lot of product development with them. in raw wool scouring, particularly in chemical processing, machine washability, mercerization, improving quality, more improving consistency of quality, improving yields like that. I also support the sales marketing department. You know, when they get technical questions, all the companies I work for have an international network, so when they get technical questions from a customer, you know, I support them on that if they can't quite understand. I also do a lot of technical stroke marketing writing for them. You know, all the 4 manufacturing companies I work for are all Chinese, and they won't mind me saying because I tell them, but when they tell me, they send me the English script. Of course, I understand, but I don't understand. I say it's Chinese poetry. It might work in China, but we understand nothing in the West. So I do a lot of writing to present their products, etc., and technical marketing. I call it my Sunday job. I also develop new business. Of course, I'm based in Australia and close to New Zealand. I visit a lot of the retailers and Brazilian customers, but I also travelled a lot around the world and know a lot of retailers and brands, all over the world. And also I created an international network. Yeah. I've got a great international network. Of course, a lot of old, very experienced Walmart staff around the world, but also other staff who I work with in the textile chemical industry, the retail industry, every type of industry. So if we need help in a particular country or they need help, we communicate together. Sometimes we do joint projects together.
Okay, that's a large portfolio, and thank you for sharing that. And I want to get back to you being with your expertise in the area of chemical processing of wool. Yeah. And I understand that you actually, without you and your work around the world, we wouldn't be able to wash our wool in the washing machine. But tell us a little bit more about chemical processing, what all that includes.
Okay, as I say, first of all, my expertise and my first job, and I spent at least 20 years, if not more, traveling the world, designing machine washable plants and commissioning and training staff and setting them up. I think, looking back, one of the reasons, Elisabeth, I was lucky is that machine washability is not a fashion. Yeah, it's a necessity. Without the function of machine washability, the wool industry would be at least half the size it is today, because if you think about it, how could we sell wool socks? How could we get into the sports outdoor market? How we could sell many, many knitted products if we couldn't wash them today in a machine washing machine. So it's got the longevity. It's not a fashion where some of my colleagues, unfortunately, lost their jobs earlier because they was working perhaps on more great innovations at the time, but they only perhaps last for 1 or 2, 5 seasons, something like that. So I was really lucky. I also, as I gained my experience, I also, working with a colleague of mine, we developed and invented the mercerization process for wool. Yeah.
So explain what that exactly is, mercerization of wool.
Yeah, what it is, we confused everybody at the start in that, of course, mercerization is associated with cotton. And also, it was actually invented, mercerization was invented for cotton by a Lancastrian. And being a Yorkshireman, we had to get even, so we invented one for wool. Now, it actually does essentially the same as it does for cotton, in that it increases the softness and comfort, and also the luster, the gloss. But of course, it uses completely different chemicals, because cotton's cellulosic fibre and wool is a beta-carotene, is a protein fibre. We also had initially a lot of criticism because it gives a very silky look, and the fibre is very slippy. So, I had quite a lot of spinners complaining with ends down, they couldn't spin it, they can't do this, they can't do that, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, it's become a staple now.
So all these like machine washability, but also mercerization and other chemical processes. In which areas of the industry are these most applied then?
Well, it tends to be more important for knitted products. Um, we have the technology also for making woven products machine washable, yeah, but it's less important. As I say, it's essential today that most wool knitted products are machine washable. Like I mentioned, if we want to be baby wear or regular sweaters, sports outdoor, certainly, etc., etc. When it comes to wovens, we've got the technology, and we do help companies develop machine washable products, but mainly separates. So it's good for men's and ladies' trousers or ladies' skirts, etc. Even though we got the technology for making machine washable suits, which we've done with Japanese retailers, very few consumers are going to take the chance to throw a suit in a washing machine and see what happens, even though we could guarantee it. Also, men's suits or lady suits as well is an high-ticket item. So, you're paying $1,000 or so for a suit. You don't mind paying, $15 to $20 to have it dry cleaned. But when it comes to knitwear, you might buy a piece of knitwear for $50, $80, but $5 or $10 to have it dry cleaned is also expensive in proportion-wise, in percentage-wise.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, well, thank you so much for explaining this about chemical processing. And I also want to talk to you about your experience in manufacturing in Asia. So, because you mentioned earlier that most of your clients are actually based in Asia. So, my first question is, what fascinates you about wool manufacturing in Asia?
Well, first of all, every area of wool manufacturing, every geographical area fascinates me, whether it's southern Russia, Northern Ireland, wherever. It's just that the last 20 years or so, the focus in manufacturing has been in Asia, primarily China, because, that's where the growth's been. As you know, 20 years ago, China probably only bought, I can't remember the figures, exactly 5 or 10% of Australian wool, for example, but today they buy about 80%. So definitely the growth area. But I've been working in Asia a long time, and it's very, very interesting sort of follow my career, and I often explain that, the first 5 years, 5 or 10 years, of my career, from 1970, let's say, to 1980, approximately, I lived my working life in 5 main countries where the manufacturing sector was. So I worked extensively, of course, in UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan. Where did I go to in the early 1980s when the industry started to move? There was 2 main countries, was South Korea and Taiwan. Then they became too expensive, and there was a mega shift of the industry then to China, which has continued ever since. So, first of all, the fact that I, the last 20 years or so working for Walmart, I spent my life in China, and I first went to China in 1981, very, very early, and so it's inevitable when I started my own business that I start working with, particularly in China, because things are happening in China. There's moving to different stages. First of all, it was a cheap manufacturing. Then they went through, I like to call it emulating rather than copying, but they went through a period of emulation. And now they're leading the innovation, with the new strategy led by the government, innovation, the way forward. Every company there, whether it's telecommunications, the trains, airplanes, textile industry, has really got this innovation buzz, which is, right where I sit.
And where do you see the industry moving after China? So what are other countries developing?
A lot of people ask me, I think, first of all, I don't think it'll move quite as quickly as Taiwan and Korea, because China's production is such on a mega scale. But of course, it's starting to move already. So it's starting to move to Southeast Asia. We're seeing Chinese companies more investing there. And the sort of new place, they're talking about Ethiopia. Some of the mega Chinese companies have moved to Ethiopia, some to Vietnam. I'm talking to companies today who want me to take them to Myanmar, and I've looked there. And so it's going to move to, the volume textile industry, including the volume wool industry, always one of the first to move, like with the electronics assembly industry or the toy industry, always moves to sort of cheaper countries. There'll always be great companies exist, like we've still got great weavers in Yorkshire. We got great weavers and companies in Italy, but the volume follows the price. Unfortunately or fortunately, but it's just a fact.
Yeah. And yeah, because you have this experience of having visited and worked with companies in Asia as well as in Europe, can you name a few of the main differences between manufacturing?
Yeah, I can. I mean, first of all, we got to sort of split Asia up a little bit. Of course, Japan and Korea is very, very advanced. Yeah. China's probably 20 years behind, and then we talk about Southeast Asia. We look at Vietnam, where I spend a lot of time, and they're a little China. They're China of 20 years ago. So I'll talk a bit about China, which of course I know the best. I mean, there is some differences. Have changed a lot. First of all, the Chinese companies tend to be a mega scale. On a real mega scale, the car park's often bigger than the biggest factory in Europe. A lot of attention on innovation. So in terms of production today and quality, certainly the companies that I work with, they can produce as good quality as anybody. Yeah. Of course, they don't have the heritage or branding, etc., like European companies do. And one thing I find they are weak on, the product's really good. The technology today, they sort of jumped over in many cases. A lot of Western companies, but to be fair, they've got the money to invest in the latest dyeing equipment and technology, etc. And you cannot move European, particularly Italian consultants in China. But the one thing is still very weak. They don't present their collection and ideas and innovations in a good way for a Western audience. And that's a lot of work I've been doing. Whatever they do might work in China. And I always say to people, I've worked for more than 40 years in China, but I still doubt I understand about 10%. So there is some differences.
Okay, and if I were a retail brand, how should I decide if I want to manufacture in Europe or maybe in Asia?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of experience on the questions they ask me, first of all, and different brands have different rules and regulations. But first things they always ask, of course, they ask, can you make the product? Yeah. And to what quality? Can you make it to this, whether it's Walmart standards or whatever? Of course, they ask the price. They ask the minimums. Yeah. So the minimum orders. They ask the lead times. Yeah. So that might get them to visit the factories. Then they have to do audits. This varies from retailer to retailer. Some audits take at least 6 months, if not a year, to go through the motion. Some of the bigger US companies or the big European companies, they've got the CSR rules and this, that, and the other. It involves every aspect, training, worker safety, like this, and stuff like that. But I mainly get asked the questions, when they're looking for a new supplier, I usually get them, persuade them by telling the price indication, the quality indication, the minimum orders and lead times. And then they will decide whether to go off, on a trip to explore. and which I help them set up. They of course book their own flights and hotels and whatever, but I arrange visits to companies. And even this week, I got a leading Australian brand doing that.
Okay, and then another question I would like to address is that a lot of European, but also US consumers have some prejudices against manufacturing in Asia, or let's say maybe in particular China. For example, that they have lower environmental regulations or worse working conditions, minimum wages. And what is your experience in regards of these topics when it comes to wool manufacturing in China? Are these concerns justified?
Okay, Elisabeth. Yeah, this was perhaps true, I don't know exactly, but let's say a decade or so ago. It was also the way to do business, etc., etc. I think the people who think that today probably never went to China, or maybe went to China for 2 days and stayed in Shanghai. I mean, China has come on a long way on every aspect, just about every aspect of life. When I talk about the companies I work with, first of all, talking about lower environment regulations, you may recall that in 2015, China introduced a new strategy, including the textile industry Clean Up China campaign by President Xi.
Yeah.
It was introduced in January 2015 and nothing happened, but apparently he signed it in March, and then the Environmental Protection Ministry or Agency of China went into action. I don't know how many people they employed, but they had 2 or 3 people just about every factory the day after, taking samples and checking and this, that, and the other. If you look at the Chinese new environmental laws, they're equally as tough, if not more tougher than some of the European ones. So that's the first one. Second, working conditions. Well, you won't believe some of the working conditions of the workers now. Some of the companies I work with is like a 6-star hotel, subsidized, very, very clean, beautiful, workers' canteens, medical facilities on site, sports facilities, etc. In fact, I was thinking about this because when I first started with AWS for the first 20 years, I actually got subsidized food and other benefits, etc. But the last 20 years, I didn't get anything. So, which way are we going? The third thing you mentioned about minimum wages or wages, this is an area I tend not to get involved because I'm not an expert, but it does crop up from time to time, and it tends to be not so much the minimum wage in China, but the hours what people actually work, especially in the run-up to the Chinese New Year, when it's one of the busiest times and every retailer and brand in the world is screaming for delivery. Now, we've got a situation, I don't know whether it's right or wrong, as I say, I'm not an expert, where, of course, like us, on the run-up to Christmas, for example, it's an expensive time. So the Chinese worker, generally speaking, wants as much overtime as possible. Yeah? Wants as much overtime as possible. So as long as it's not forced, and I see no evidence of it being forced, it's voluntary with the companies I work with. And I remember working in the industry in Bradford when I first started with AWS. It was the same situation with the immigrants, the Indian and Pakistani immigrants working in the textile industry. They all wanted to do double shifts to earn money, to buy an house, to settle a family in the country. So, apart from my observations, particularly with the companies I work with, I don't know how this is answered. Yeah, it's something I'm not an expert on.
Mm. Okay, no, but it's very interesting to hear your view. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then earlier you explained that many of your clients are from the wool knitting industry. So give us a little bit an overview about the wool knitting industry. What are the challenges at the moment?
There's a lot of challenges. I always like to think some challenges, or most challenges, we turn them into opportunities. Okay, right now, of course, wool prices are just starting to bite. I mean, I'm so delighted that the wool growers in Australia, who's paid me for 40 odd years, are for the first time in 50 years making a profit. Yeah, so I'm very happy about that. But we're just starting to see the wool prices bite, and also some issues with the availability of some types of wool. So we're seeing also, because most of our customers who make the decision are retailers and brands, yeah, and we actually seen a move towards blends, but not so much just on price, but because people are now looking for what they call performance to really mean functionality. So they want merino plus something, yeah. Also, we're getting more demands from retailers and brands for different things. Of course, traceability is one of the key things. The textile industry, including the wool textile industry, starting to emulate the food industry. The food industry, from paddock to plate. So we've got the wool industry, whatever you call it, from fibre to fashion, sheep to shop, etc. So a lot of interest, a lot of demands on that. Of course, chemical usage is also very important for some retailers. The Greenpeace detox scheme. Many retailers and brands have signed up for that. And also of course, fly strike, isn't it? Becoming more of an issue. And the responsible wool standard. So there's a lot of different things coming at us which present challenges. The strategy of all the companies I work for, of course, is try to listen to the customer and give the customer what they want. Yeah? If some want this, we give them that. It's like going to a restaurant. Some want pasta, some want beef, some want lamb. We try to put it on the menu, means in our collection. Of course, there's a cost as well. Yeah.
Okay, you had a lot of interesting answers there for me. So let's break them a little bit up. So what are current trends for the wool wool knitted products at the moment?
I would say the main trends. The main trends at the moment, of course, generally speaking, casualisation. But to be more specific, now we're seeing the mega trend being implemented where, fashion is crossing into sports and sports crossing into fashion. A few years ago, when we were selling products for the fashion industry, we had just learned about the latest colours, the Anfield, the drape, etc. Yeah? And now the fashion is interested in performance. In fact, we're one of the largest companies I work with in the world. We actually did a global survey. We got their representatives in London, New York, Tokyo, etc., to talk to our customers, which this company has more than 4,000. And the fashion customers start to come back. We want something plus. We want performance. We want functionality. Yeah? They didn't really know what they wanted apart from that specifically. It was up to us to come up with ideas. We also seen the sports outdoor, because of the crossover, asking about fashion effects, yeah, which we with some of the companies we've created. So the crossover is very, very interesting. We've got the athleisure movement in the middle, or the sports look, as it's called in America. But so it's a challenge, but it presents great opportunities for us. Of course, traceability. As I mentioned before, the the farm to fashion. 3 times a day, we're dealing with new inquiries. Use of chemicals, yeah, chemical issues, and this, that, and the other. So, as I say, there's a whole range of challenges, but I always say to the companies I work with, we got to address these, but look how we can move a step forward and take it as an opportunity. Like anything when it moves in the world, and as you know, there's a famous list somewhere where some of the greatest companies in the world started in a year when it was a tremendous recession, like Apple, like Microsoft, some people like that. So there's challenges, but we got the same as opportunities.
Well, I really enjoyed listening to all what you had to say. Thank you so much. Where can our listeners find out more about you and connect with you?
I would, well, first of all, ideally I don't want them to telephone me because number of calls when I'm traveling, I wake up at 3:30 in the morning. Yeah. And not all textile people. 2 weeks ago I was in China and I got a call about somebody coming to fix my dishwasher at 3:30 in the morning in China. But anyhow, yeah. So I think by email or by joining me on the LinkedIn site.
Okay. And what is your website?
I don't have a website.
Okay.
I didn't need a website. I felt, Elisabeth, I didn't need a website because I think everybody knows me. Been around too long.
Okay, that's good advertising for you then. Okay, well, thank you so much, Jimmy, for your time and sharing your knowledge with us. And yeah, good luck with your work-life balance and all the work that you do.
Thank you, and Elisabeth, thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, I think after this interview, we all can understand why Jimmy Jackson does not need a website, because he and his knowledge just speak for himself. If you want to find out a little bit more about Jimmy, just head on over to the show notes at elisabethvandelden.com/078. There you can find more details about his career and his expertise, as well as his link to his LinkedIn page. So head on over to elisabethvandelden.com/078. Thank you for listening. Talk to you again next week, and bye for now.